Welcome to another edition of the CDG BizCast. I'm your host, Christian Gonzalez, co-owner of Creativity Design Group, a digital marketing firm in Houston, Texas. Our small business spotlight is on Chef Michael Brown, owner of Jamburritos. He is an entrepreneur who brings happiness to everyone he meets with culinary talent. Michael is here to tell us about his noble beginnings and why his passion for cooking has led him to where he is today. So, Michael, thank you for joining me on CDG BizCast today. It's your very first time being here, and we're happy to have you. How are you today?
Thank you. Kristen, I am just excited to be on the show and able to kind of talk with you. We hit it off very well when we met a few weeks ago and both have similar business minds, so I'm happy to be here.
And I'm happy to have you on the show as well. Like they say, great minds think alike, and so I would like to start off. Please tell me your story about why you wanted to be a business owner versus working in the corporate world. What was your drive towards becoming a business owner? What really pushed you there?
Well, actually, it was a point of discovery based on a vision that I had, and the point of discovery was based on the fact that there was a need. I'm a true believer that necessity is the mother of invention. I was in the ninth grade living with my mom, who had been divorced for a while, and she was trying her best to support her kids, which she had 7 of. And 4 of them at that time were in college, and I was the oldest in the house with the 2 younger boys. And my mom basically told me that this fall she wouldn't have enough money to buy me school clothes. And it was like instinctively, I had an instinctive response of, no problem, Mom. I'm going to go and get a job. I hadn't been thinking about getting a job, but as soon as that situation arose, I got my sneakers on and we walked with my buddy 3 miles in search of a job. Came across a guy who was in front of his restaurant sweeping his sidewalk. And I said to him, I can do that for you. And he said, really? Okay. I said, yeah. Do you have any work? He said, yeah, come down on Monday morning and I'll get you started. And that's where I got started in the restaurant business. It was in Plainfield, New Jersey, and I was a dishwasher and I peeled potatoes and things like that, swept the floors. And when I talk about necessity of the mother of invention, the need was, of course, to be able to afford my own school clothes. But then it sort of like happened, and the cosmos just circled back around, and my mother just happened to come by the storefront and saw me mopping the floor. And it was at that moment I heard, like as if the heavens opened up and said, this is what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And I said, okay, I have no problem with that. I said, but I just have to make a deal that I will be the owner. So I believe that was the time at 14 years old when I first thought of being an entrepreneur, being a business owner. But I knew that there was a lot of things that I had to learn first. So that's when I went on a quest to work in almost every position related to the food service industry. I worked 2 jobs at once for 4 years of high school. That was at this restaurant. And then I also was a swing manager at a Burger King. So I got some fast food experience. And then I went to Baskin Robbins and got some ice cream experience. And then I went on to college and got experience as a kitchen manager, working at a hotel with the Hyatt Regency as a busboy. I actually delivered produce for a short period of time. I worked for Cisco Foods as a sales rep. I got a degree in hotel restaurant management. I took private cooking lessons from French chefs. I traveled to various cities in New Orleans, especially to learn how to cook their cuisine. So it was just a series of going from one learning experience to the other until a point I got to a point I was 27 years old and I thought I had enough experience to open my own restaurant. So that's the long and the short of it, Christian.
You have a lot of experience under your belt. You actually had more experience than I actually pictured you had, because I honestly thought that you might have spent most of your life actually running some type of business, but it sounds like that you've gained your experience working for several different companies, and that's great. And it all helped you get to where you're at now. It sounds like that you've had a great amount of work experience in your past, and all of it has led up to you starting Jamburritos as we speak. And please tell me more about Jamburritos. Tell me more about the birth of this wonderful new culinary innovation.
Sure. So, Christian, actually, before there was Jamburritos, there was Michael's Backstreet Cafe. And that was a full service, semi fine dining restaurant in New Jersey where we ended up opening 3 different locations. Jamburritos actually is the fast casual version of Michael's Backstreet Cafe. So at Michael's, we had servers that wore bow ties, long aprons, and we had lace tablecloths and lanquid ceiling fans and jazz music and like Dizzy Gillespie and Louis Armstrong playing. And it was the kind of place where it was like a little hideaway place. In fact, that's why we called it the Backstreet Cafe, because it was actually on a back street cul-de-sac. We opened in 1989. That was my first restaurant. And then we got reviewed in around 1991 with the New York Times. And they gave us a 1 star, which is pretty big for the New York Times. And we came standing room only from that point on. It took 2 weeks to get a reservation. And we would serve 100 to 150 people on a Friday and a Saturday night. So that was the beginning of it all. I was just so happy with the way we made a difference in that community. Even though we were in an all-Black Hispanic neighborhood, we had a plethora of different cultures coming into this restaurant and to seek it out. During that process, I was thinking about a way to maybe speed up service and lower prices to reach a larger audience. And that's when I started studying the fast casual market. So think about it now in 89 and then, all the way through the 90s, this was like a $25 per person per plate type place. So today that would be like maybe a $50 place. And the seating time was about 2 hours. And so I was thinking, how can I serve more people in that same 2 hour period of time? Again, I started to study the fast casual market, Baja Fresh, Chipotle, and Boston Market. And Chipotle, was going after that price point where it wasn't fast food, it wasn't fine dining, but it was right in the middle. People were willing to pay $8 to $10 to $11 a person to eat food. And so that's when I actually started thinking about making a jambalaya burrito. And I started to experiment with it by putting jambalaya in a tortilla and then adding whatever meat and whatever veggies you would do to wrap it up and make it a portable meal. So that's how the Jamburrito became into existence. And it was launched in 2010 out of a food truck out of the state of Arizona. And then it became very, very popular as well. We were reviewed in 2017 by MSN and received a distinctive award for being in the top 100 food trucks in the entire country, rated at number 26 out of the top 100. So the next step for us was to do a brick and mortar, and that's why we're here in the Houston area.
And you couldn't have picked a better place. The Houston area is a great place to start a restaurant. It's a major foodie city, and it also has a very diverse population. I can certainly see Jamburritos taking off like a rocket here in the Houston area. And not only do I see you opening one brick and mortar store, but I see you expanding. The Houston area is only the beginning. You could open up locations across the nation once it takes off here. I can even see you opening quite a few locations here in Houston and also within Texas, and then eventually you can go nationwide. And this concept is just so unique. There is nobody else out there who's doing anything like this. I mean, yeah, Chipotle, but they don't have this jambalaya based burrito at Chipotle, and nobody does really. So you have a $1 million product on your hands right here. I have another question for you. In addition to this wonderful burrito that you've came up with, what are some other items we can expect to see on the menu at Jamburritos?
I'm glad you asked that, Christian. So what we want to do with Jamburritos is kind of mix it up a little bit. Most of our competitors will have a basic menu that it stays the same and it won't change for a couple of years. Maybe they won't add new things. And so what we want to do is we want to create a basic menu And then we'll have what we call Blackboard specials. So every day there'll be one new special on the menu. Sometimes it'll be seasonally based. For example, in the season of crawfish, it'd be live boiled crawfish. We'll do like a crawfish etouffee, and there'll be certain items that during certain days of the week you can count on them being there on one day out of the week. The basic structure of the menu, though, is very similar to Chipotle in terms of a four-tiered style menu. So there's a jamburrito, and then there's a jambalaya bowl. So it's basically the jamburrito without the tortilla. We also have what we call Cajun tacos and Cajun quesadillas. So you'll see jamburritos, jambalaya bowls, tacos, and quesadillas as a basic menu. So that's pretty much what you'll see. We'll also be offering gumbo. We'll be offering some red beans and rice options. Again, some of those things may be on the special menu that for that day of the week. And then because we want to in the beginning keep it nice and simple, make it so that people can come in and create 1,000 different personalized options for their favorite foods. And so that's why everything's going to be, constructible. You can construct your own jamburrito, you can construct your own bowl, and even tacos and so forth. What will be unique about everything is that we make our own roux and etouffees and Creole sauces. So those sauces will be that flavor that you get down home New Orleans. And we also have our own seasoning mix called Miracle Dust, which is salt-free, and we just add enough salt just for that particular recipe. That will make those flavors unique to Jamburritos and versus any other burrito company.
I must say that I was starting to get hungry just hearing you describe all of that. That is a wonderful menu right there. I can't think of a better market than the Houston area. Again, it's a major foodie city. The people in this area love to eat. They love to go out and eat. And the restaurant scene here is crazy. You would take off like a rocket here if you were to get started here. You also mentioned to me during a private conversation we had a few weeks ago that you entered your spice into a contest sponsored by HEB. Could you please tell me a little more about that?
Absolutely, Christian. So HEB has every year a quest for Texas Best contests. And what they're doing is they're encouraging people to launch their own products, enter them into this contest, and perhaps win. I think the prize money was something like $5,000, first place, and that kind of thing. So they can win money and also have the opportunity to possibly get their product on their shelves. Because HEB was started on a wing and a prayer by a young lady years and years ago, they're centered very much on locals. So everything that we do has to come from Texas. I entered so far 2 years in a row, and it looks like I'm going to have to go back for the third year because we didn't become finalists in either of those situations. But it was a great experience to do that. We created a video each time for our product, and now we just continually grow and try to learn what it is that we can do to eventually win.
I would say that was great initiative right there because it's a great way to give your brand some exposure. I'm sorry to hear that you didn't make it to the finalists because I tried some of your nachos that you brought to our seminar a few weeks ago and I saw how you seasoned the chips. It was delicious, I must say. It was some of the best I've ever had and I just don't understand why it didn't make it to the finalists, but you still did a great job. This is a form of marketing right there. I would say just keep trying. If HEB ever holds another contest like this again, I would say go for it. Enter it again. Because even if you didn't make it to the finals, I guarantee you there were people who were there who enjoyed trying it. And that's really what counts.
Absolutely. What was it? Abraham Lincoln, who tried to get in office for 8 times or so and kept failing or did not succeed, and known now as one of our greatest presidents ever. As the next office he went for was the United States presidency.
That's correct. And we also mustn't forget about Coca-Cola either. When Coca-Cola first started, they only sold 1 bottle. Can you believe that?
I didn't know that.
Your product is going to take off, and maybe this contest wasn't the place to do it. When you start your official brick and mortar store, or even if you venture out on the road with a food truck, that is how you're going to get some real exposure. And that leads me into my next question. What do you plan on doing first to really get Jamburritos out there? Do you want to start with your brick and mortar? Or do you want to obtain a food truck soon and then take it on the road first?
Well, Christian, I had a food truck in Arizona for 10 years. And there are challenges with a food truck and no home base. I really want to make sure that to do it the right way this time and have the home base, brick and mortar, so I can come back and replenish the truck. So simultaneously, we will purchase both. So we'll get the lease, of course, and we'll have the food truck, but we won't just have a food truck without the restaurant. The food truck is going to be great for catering and for marketing into other areas because, again, as you mentioned in the beginning, the idea is not just to have one Jamburritos. The idea is to have multiple Jamburritos. I'm going to be chasing my competitors, which is like Chipotle and a couple other burrito companies out here. I'm going to be chasing them and, looking to, my 5-year plan is to have 8 to 10 stores. And then once that is established, I would be entertaining investors who would be able to take us to a point where we're opening up 5 to 10 stores a year.
What do you plan to do to get the Jamburritos brand some exposure at this current stage? Since you don't have your storefront yet, what are you working on to truly get it out to the public to create awareness?
That's a great question. I initially, when I first came to the Houston market, I did start to do festivals. I did the Houston Food Festival, and I learned something from there. It's sometimes, until you have the right people on the bus, it could actually hurt your brand. We were really, really busy. We were on par to do $8,000 in a 4-hour period, and we did $4,000 instead because it was so busy and we didn't have the right staff. We ended up having to shut down because service is very, very important to me, and I'd rather work on the orders that I have in the kitchen and service the people quicker than to have them wait and wait and wait. I formed a marketing team right now where we're going to look at some unique ways of marketing Jamburritos. And we're going to be meeting once a month. And maybe you might even be on that team if you're interested. So we're going to be meeting once a month. And my goal is to have a think tank of people that can say, okay, let's think outside the box. Let's break the box open. Okay. When we were in New Jersey and my wife was running the marketing and the PR, we did some really, really out of the box thinking. We were reading that book, Guerrilla Marketing. I'm sure you've heard of that one, Christian. And we just did some crazy things to get the name out there. I remember once there was in about 2 cities over, there was at Montclair State College, there was a Billie Holiday concert. And we called up and they said there were 300 seats and 300 seats were sold out. So we created flyers with the name of our restaurant on it. Actually, the flyer was a postcard with a postcard menu hid in the bushes. When the people came out from the theater, jumped out and handed them these cards. And we saw 10 new customers come in that very weekend. So things like that. And in terms of creative ways of getting the name out there is going to be important. And mostly now it's probably going to be through social media. Eventually, when we get closer to the grand opening, we'll have pop-up tastings to help us just kind of get some of the influencers in so they can start talking about it on social media. One thing we also might do, again, is begin to attach ourselves to a charitable organization and help them out in some kind of way. We've done that in the past with the SOS, Cancer Research, Battered Women. So we've done that before, and we're just looking to do that again. We've fed people at the homeless shelter. So it's just going to be a combination of things that is part of our DNA that will help us to, in my opinion, let the people know who we are. I don't like to necessarily always have an ulterior motive in what I'm doing, but I do know that people will follow a vision, and I'm hoping to get a lot of people on board.
Yes, that's correct. Once you have your vision of what you want in life set in mind, then it's your job to follow it. And right now, I can tell that you're passionate about what you do and that you really want to take Jamburritos to the next level. I mean, the idea alone is taking fast casual to the next level, but this is just out of this world thinking right here.
You mentioned, without me even actually telling you, you actually mentioned something that is part of, I think, our differential advantage. So my background includes working in fine dining, fast food. I was even a nomad, with traveling food truck and tented events and those kind of things. My goal is to bring all of that experience in a situation of fast casual that I call five-star service in a fast casual environment. So what do I mean by that? Okay, I have identified certain, I should say, deficiencies in my competitors who have been quite successful. Chipotle has over 1,800 stores, and a lot of the other burrito companies are doing quite well. But I've identified a deficiency, and that's in their service. That happens to be one of my pet peeves and one of my vast experiences that I've been through, where, I've served the Prince of the Netherlands, Bishop Desmond Tutu, Richard Pryor. And I'm not saying that because believe that they're any better than anybody else, but that's the level of service that I've been exposed to. And so I'd like to bring that level of service back into the fast casual market, which I think doesn't really exist. So, for example, when you come in, we're going to make sure we greet you. It's going to be, we're going to make sure we even have somebody at the door greeting you. Sometimes on the one online, we might hand out some samples for you to taste some of the new creations that we're doing. You come up to be served. You're not going to be like a conveyor belt type customer. We're going to look you in the eye. We're going to know exactly what we're serving so we can educate you if you don't know. Like, we'll be able to tell you what an etouffee sauce is. What cut of meat do we use? These things are not existing in my competitors. Most of the people that are serving us are barely looking at you, barely interacting with you. We're going to use technology to make sure our service is always 5-star. And if we ever fall below that, we're going to use technology to allow people to have a window of opportunity to say, let us know so we can correct it right away. For example, if you've ever been to and this is a bad example, but this is hopefully to illustrate what I'm talking about. If you've ever been to an airport bathroom, when you leave the bathroom, on the way out, there's this little thing that you can see. It's a sad face or happy face. And so you hit sad or you hit happy, but it somehow that information is gathered up to some place where a person who is in charge of that area can say, hey, I need to go tend to this bathroom because it's not clean or whatever it is. It may not be that exact type of system, but before you even leave out the door, there's going to be some type of kiosk that's going to allow you to give us feedback. We're going to always encourage feedback, even while you're online. We're going to entertain you with jazz music, like I mentioned before, Dizzy Gillespie, Louis Armstrong, Zydeco, all of the arts that form the basis of the New Orleans vibe. Okay, so a lot of the people that we'll hire will be actors and actresses. So their job is just to entertain. If you remember that movie Cocktail with Tom Cruise, he as a bartender you think he's selling drinks, but no, he's selling entertainment. And so those are the things that we were going to do to bring the raise the bar on the fast casual market. And I believe that, and I know for a fact that food is important, but service is higher on people's radar when it comes to restaurants. And so I'll be focusing heavily on making sure that we live up to our values, which is to serve people with excellence, to understand what it is that we're serving, to be able to have emotional intelligence enough to read people so that we can make sure that we are being part of the solution and not the problem. I've always been able to read people. Like, you come up and look like you have a bad day. My job is to make sure that you leave having a good day. And I can do that with a smile. I can do that with connecting to you person to person, human to human, and not just, throwing food at you. It's just amazing what you can do to change somebody's trajectory on their own day with food and service. It's just amazing. That's what I love so much about this business, because we have the chance to just affect lives. Some people, man, they've had just a hard time of the day, and that goes back to my why. I mean, when I was 6 years old, hanging on my mother's apron, wondering why my brothers and sisters weren't helping out in the kitchen, knowing that my mom also is going to have a hard time at night because dad's going to come home and possibly she might get abused. But looking at her face and seeing how she never showed it, she never cooked like it. She could have easily cooked like, forget this, I'm just going to throw any food together. But she cooked to a point where your soul was satisfied. And see, that brings tears to my eyes, because I used to always wonder, I said, wow, how come, this business for me is so personal, and I'm always striving to improve and to make it better and to serve you better and to all those things. I was wondering what drove me to do that. And it was not about the money. It was just about the art, and the gift. I've had bag ladies come into my restaurant and they got treated just like they were the Prince of the Netherlands. Because why? Because that's my job to give them that experience, and no matter who else is looking at them funny, that's their seat, that's their table. They rented that for that time frame, and it's my job to make sure that they walk out satisfied and feeling like that experience is something that they'll remember for the rest of their lives. So yeah, so it's all connected to my mom, and then again, she was the catalyst for me going out and getting a job, getting it at a restaurant. It was all connected. And so that is why I believe that if I can bring that into a fast casual environment, which is the direction, it's the fastest growing segment of the hospitality of the restaurant industry. If I can bring that in there, it's going to be one of those cultural phenomenons where, like, you go to Chick-fil-A and you just want to hear them say, "My pleasure." It's going to be a feeling more so than anything that people are going to want to have over and over again and tell their friends and their families, "Hey, you got to go over there because when you walk out of there, you're going to feel like somebody."
What a beautiful story. I mean, that story brought a tear to my eye, too, just hearing that. I'm glad to hear that your story pays so much respect back to your mom, who is basically your main inspiration over why you decided to not only start Jamburritos, but also gave you that entrepreneurial spirit that I just love to see in so many other business owners that I work with. And speaking of her, you've told me that due to the Jamburritos name being very similar to another burrito company in Texas, you are considering changing the name of your company to include your mom's name?
Yes, that is correct. Anything with the name burrito in it, what I heard from an attorney was that there were over 400 applications in the patent office for that name. And there's a company out here with a Jum Burritos, and that's a JU as opposed to a JM. And so I'm not overly concerned about that because I believe that we can use it to our advantage. But I'm in searching for a name, and again, my creative team, my marketing team, will help me find a new name. The first thing that came to my mind, though, was Mildred, which is my mother's name, Mildred Louise Brown. So we kind of play around with some names like Mildred's House, Mildred's Seafood Restaurant, something like that. And so I think for the important part is to do it early on so you don't cause too much confusion out in the market.
That's correct, and you'll also want to make sure that you establish the new name before you actually go into business and open your doors. That should be taken care of long before the restaurant opens its doors to the public. I do like the idea. I was even going to suggest that her name should be somewhere in the name. Her name should be somewhere in the company's name. Going back to the service, I should also state that having a wonderful product is only half the battle. How you provide service while delivering the product is the other half of said battle, and that will also make a difference. You could have a great product, but if you don't have great service, then that great product doesn't matter. The customers aren't going to buy it. They're not going to buy a product from a place where they're receiving bad customer service. And I see how important delivering good customer service is in your eyes. And that's what Jamburritos is all about. It's all about ensuring that whoever comes in to eat at your restaurant leaves with a smile on their face. They'll write you a nice 5-star review, and they'll tell all their friends to come check you out.
You got that, Christian, right on the nose. You know, when people have bad experiences, they'll 10 times more likely to share that information than when they have great experiences. Over the years, that has sort of been a theme in every restaurant, every food truck, every catering that I've had company, which started back in 1989. And then that has been a common theme. In Michael's Backstreet Cafe, we had a law, like a book for people to sign in. It's called a logbook. and there was an area for them to leave comments. And man, I tell you, you should listen to some of the comments that people would leave. One person said, eating Michael's bread pudding is like the best thing you could do with your clothes on. Another person said, relieve my sinuses like Afrin never could. The services of your busboys, my water was filled like I felt like I was going to float out the place, you know? So I kept sort of like kind of, taking note of the people's reactions to things. And of course, it's something that you feed off of. Like if in theater, you feed off the audience and their response to you. And one of the things that I used to do with all my staff to help them prepare for whatever that night was, because every night, regardless of how well you did the night before, was a new night. It's like a new play. And I used to compare what we did to theater. And I said, okay, when we're here, 2 hours of prep in time and setting up and folding napkins and putting out the silverware, that's like the curtain is down and we're behind the scenes setting it up for everybody who's about to come in. And then when we open, let's say it's 5 o'clock or whatever time, 11 o'clock, I say it's showtime, baby. That's exactly how I would say it. It's showtime. And that's the exciting part because you just did all this prep and now you set the scenario up for success. And now it's showtime. Folks are piling in and you're entertaining them from the time they walk in the door to the time that they leave. And nowadays, we have opportunities now to entertain them before they even get in the door. They go to your website. How entertaining is it? They get some kind of advertisement from you. How entertaining is it? How well does it really reflect your culture of your business? Is your restaurant very friendly, but your website sort of clunky or requires a degree in computer science to use? Everything has to flow so that you're completing the whole circuit. So that's what I'm really looking to do, not just in this one store, but in a regional and then eventually a national level, to a point where we're trusted, we're a trusted company. We deliver on what we say we're going to deliver. I believe heavily in under promising and over delivering. And our market that we're going after is a very distinctive market. And how do I know that? Because I've been serving this type of food and I've been me for as long as I can remember. And I've seen the people that we've attracted. Even in the food truck, I remember like when people came up to our food truck, they had already smelled the food from like a half a mile away. So they say, man, I just followed the smell. And then they had this look on their face of excitement. And I always say this, when you're excited about to eat, when you're excited about what you're smelling, your food tastes that much better. I'm just saying, laying it out there. Your food tastes a little bit. So they come to the truck or they come into the seat at the restaurant and they're just so excited. And I'm like, well, I just don't want to let you down. And so I deliver what I know I can to the best of my ability. And I started to see this common thread and I started to say, you know what? We need to establish a profile here. Some people might call it a persona. And we need to establish a persona. What's the common thread? It's one, the people that come to the truck are foodies. The people that come to the truck or people that come to eat by us are well-traveled. People that come to eat by they like to seek out really, really good food. Either they can find it, out there, or they can actually create it themselves at home. And they don't just eat for fuel, they eat for an experience. So I kind of put all those characteristics together and I named them. And I said, there's a place, and I know it's gonna sound really crazy. So Jamburritos is a restaurant, but Jamburritia is an island or is a place. And the people that live in Jamburritia are Jamburidians. I had this Facebook page called the Jamburidian Club or something like that. Because of my inconsistency that hasn't really built up, but I think that it has a chance to really be a thing, When you know what a Jamburidian is, because that profile, and people like to be around people that are happy about what they do and eating out. So anyway, that's where I'm excited. That's where I want to take fast casual. And it's okay. I'd rather serve 1 million people for $11 a head than serve, say, 200,000 people at $50 a head. Because while I do have a background of being an executive chef and I've put out some really, really top quality meals, longevity wise, I saw the writing on the wall and knew that why can't we do top quality for less money, bring the same 5-star service, and see what difference we can make out there.
Yes, yes, very well said. And you led me into my next question. I was going to ask you about who your target audience was, and you described it perfectly. So, to follow up on that question, where would you say Jamburritos' ideal location within the Houston area would be for their first brick and mortar store?
Oh, yes. So only 2 years in the city, so I'm still learning. We've chosen Houston because it is the culinary capital of the United States. And because we believe that when you're starting something for flagship operation, you want to go where the people are. Location, location, location. Still busy, still big in the industry. And when the trendsetters get a hold of it, then they will actually help you to branch out into maybe lower trafficked areas. So, okay, wow, it's Houston. I heard this is great. We're gonna, take a road trip over there, blah, blah, blah. Oh, but next, you know what? We're gonna bring one to Parallel now. We're gonna bring one to, Missouri City or whatever. Right now, as far as Houston is concerned, we're looking at the Galleria area. In the Galleria area, there's some really dead spots. So we are not sure, what we're going to do as far as, well, we know we're going to find the right spots, but we don't know where they are currently. But I do have a meeting tomorrow with a tenant representative, and he knows the area very well. So we'll hopefully help us find a location.
I feel that Jamburritos would take off not only in the Galleria area, but if you were to go to Rice Village, the Heights has a major restaurant scene, the Montrose area in Midtown, anywhere within I would say on the west side inner loop, you could find some great potential. Because the restaurant scene in Houston is huge, especially within the inner loop. And all those areas that I mentioned, they're heavy in restaurants, and many foodies travel there, I would say daily, just to try different things. There's a lot of choices for food in the city of Houston. It's the food capital of the world, I would say. I mean, think about it, the world, not just the United States, because the city of Houston is incredibly diverse. People from all over the world live here. And it has a very diverse population. Jamburritos has more than a secure market in this area.
I'm going to probably get on your calendar, see if you can take me to some of these locations and we can just kind of look around. I'll buy you lunch and then we can go from there. You mentioned Rice. Is that Rice University area?
Yes, Rice Village is a major shopping center. It's an outdoor shopping center and plaza right next to Rice University, and also not far from Montrose area and Herman Park, where the Houston Zoo and the Museum District is located.
Okay. Yeah. I was at the Rice University for Dîner en Blanc. Have you heard of that?
I'm not familiar with it.
It started in France. It's called Dinner in White. So everybody has to wear white, and you bring your own food, and they have a band. And so Rice University hosted it. You get on a bus, you don't even know where you're going. And so finally, it's like a real like secret thing, you go through. But it's now a Dîner en Blanc is like something that happens all over the world now, once a year.
Interesting. So why don't you tell me a little bit more about your experience with that?
Yeah, I brought my own food, so I did the cooking, and we had to bring our own tables, and we had to all wear white. It was kind of like a hot day, so it was a little bit difficult. It wasn't the experience that I was hoping for. It was, I went with my daughter and her fiance, but it was good to do once. It was good to do once, and just to see how many people would come out. I mean, I think we had over 1,000 people on the lawn of that area of that Rice University.
Very interesting. And see, it's just more experience that you can add under your belt, and more experience leads to more credentials down the road. Now,
Exactly.
this might sound very forward thinking of me, but by this time next year, I would love to see Jamburritos at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo.
Hmm. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I investigated that and before. I just want, I've done huge festivals like the Ostrich Festival in Arizona. I've done like festivals with 50,000 people, and I go back to what I mentioned before about having a home base, because in previous times when I've done those festivals, it was either in a tent or a food truck, and it is a lot of work. And there is a integrity. I have a thing about integrity of my food. So you're cooking in elements that are outside and so forth. You have some things that can be compromised. We make a lot of scratch items. So I'm not going to say no. I'm just going to say it needs to be well thought out, and we need to have the right product there. You don't, in these rodeos and stuff. In fact, I've done one up in Colorado. I've done some rave concerts and stuff like that. Another one out of California in the big stadiums. And for them, they're looking for different types of food. And so like, for example, they may be looking for burgers, hot dogs, brisket, and stuff like that, which we do. We can do those things, but I have to make sure that I'm consistent with my brand promise. I have a couple other concepts under my belt that I want to do. I have my dad made these amazing burgers, and so I have a burger concept that I want to do in the future. I also have a Caribbean concept, which would be homage to my heritage, which is Trinidadian, and my wife is Haitian. So we are going to do one called Adrian's after her name. Eventually, that's what I want to do, is branch out. I think my gifting has to do with bringing authentic cuisine to themed cuisine to the masses.
I can definitely see you starting a company similar to Landry's. You could call it the Michael Brown Restaurant Group or something like that, something along those lines, and having all these different individual concepts underneath that one umbrella.
Yes, sir. Yeah. You know, but as you mentioned, the word group means the right people on the bus. It's hard to do it by yourself. You can't do it by yourself. And so really right now I'm cultivating relationships of like-minded people with different talents and gifts, many of which I may not even have. But I'm smart enough to know that there's smarter people than me out there. But it's mostly about the passion and the drive. I mean, it's definitely not about the money, because the business that we're in is a very low margin business. We put pennies in the bank as opposed to dollars. You got to love it to be in it.
Passion is important for any type of business. Passion is important for anybody who wants to get into business. Without passion, expect to start a business and enjoy what you do. And that's also going to lead me into my final question as we get ready to close out. I would like to ask you this final question. What would you like to tell anyone out there who is looking to start a business, not just a restaurant business, but anyone who just wants to walk away from the daily grind of the corporate world to start their own company, no matter what it is, whatever their idea is?
Well, I did that also before I opened Michael's Backstreet Cafe. I think it was in '87. I was working for Hilton International at the World Trade Center hotels, the same hotel buildings that got hit by the planes. And we managed a greenhouse restaurant, a room service, and I forget what it was called, but the name Harvest was in it. And I went to my director and I told him I'm leaving. I feel like I have to start my own business, and I started a food truck. And he said to me, "Well, we were just going to make you the hotel. We're opening up in Newark, New Jersey, and we were going to give you an opportunity to go up from there and to be in higher management." And I was adamant, no, no, no. Even though that opportunity was placed before me, I was adamant about not just quitting and just going out. Now, here's the thing. I would probably, if told myself to do it differently next time, I would have stayed more with that company, established my business plan first, and then, waited to launch out, had my financing in order, but I didn't do that. And I would say that don't jump out of the frying pan into the fire. do your due diligence. Put your plan, a business plan together. If you have to do something part time before you're 100% ready, then do it that way. Build your client base before you actually launch out. Make sure you have a 3 to 5 year projection plan. Do all of that. Make sure that all of your ducks are in a row before you actually jump out. Now, if you were to ask most of these entrepreneurs out here, you probably have 75% of us that didn't do it that way. But I think most of us would agree that we suffered challenges that we probably wouldn't have suffered if we had a plan. And the other thing I would say is always make sure that you pay yourself first, something that I didn't do for quite a long time. And then also make yourself, and at least 10%. And then also make sure that you have an exit strategy. So every business plan should have an exit strategy. In 5 years, in 10 years, I want to leave, but I want my value of my business to be at such and such so that I can therefore go ahead and sell it at a certain price. And then also when you do your business plan, use it on a regular basis. Keep looking at it, keep developing it. It's a living document. Get yourself in a position where you don't have to be working in your business, but working on your business. As much as we creative people want to get in there and mix it up, I was like, nobody can cook the Jamburrito like I can. But that was a mistake. Get it so that your system is duplicatable. You can have, a business plan that's a living document. You can work your plan and keep yourself like the general on the mountaintop, looking over the landscape and saying, this is how we're going to move. This is because you can't do that on the infantry line and see what the big picture. So I would say that.
Very well said. I loved all the analogies that you put in there, help us all visualize it better. And those are all very honest facts, and many business owners should follow this advice, as many of them like to make abrupt decisions that could end up being disastrous. And it sounds like, Michael, that you have all of your ducks in a row and you're ready to take Jamburritos to the next level very, very soon. I wanted to thank you once again for coming on to CDG BizCast. You've shared some great information. Your story was tear-jerking. It was heartwarming. I enjoyed hearing you tell it to me, and I really hope that all of our listeners will definitely gain something very useful when they listen to this episode. Thank you once again, Michael. You're great.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
So you have a great day now, and I look forward to having you on another episode of CDG BizCast very, very soon.
Okay, I'll be there.